Live. What's up, guys? What is up, man? We've got one killer show on tonight, and we cannot be more stoked about this episode. And we finally have gotten to be able to get in contact with our guest tonight, and I am so stoked. We've got a bunch of questions that we have got to ask, and but guys, if you don't know, I am Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin, and I'm Norman Lee. But first, we got to take care of some business real quick, man. Our one of our sponsors for tonight's episode. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Outdoor and Marine, the #1 navigational lights on the water. Truly like fishing under a full moon with 100% glare reduction. But here's the thing. You have got to check out their all-new Shore Stacker box. Now, bank fishing and surf fishing just became easier and more enjoyable with the new Firefly Shore Stacker. It's made of high-impact resistant resin and has a lockable handle with plenty of storage or tackle storage space along with a built-in cooler for more enjoyable night of fishing. Pair your Shore Stacker with a Firefly stern light and you'll have hours of fishing fun with non-blinding light and hardly any bugs. Go to www.fireflymarine.com. Don't forget, use that discount code DECKTALK10 at checkout for your instant savings. Get your Firefly navigational lights and your Shore Stacker box today. Man, that is right, Colin. We have one heck of a show, but we're just going to roll right into the show, man, because we have a lot to talk about with this dude. All right, here we go. He won the Elite Series Rookie of the Year in 2017. He is a Bassmaster Classic qualifier. He has 35 top 20s on the Bass Pro Tour, 26 top 10s, 6 career wins, 5 Redcrest appearances, and the first angler to win 2 Redcrest Championships. The number 3 ranked angler in the world, one of the winningest anglers on the Bass Pro Tour, the man simply known as DC, Dustin Connell.
What's
going
up,
on?
brother?
What's up, man? How
What's
you doing,
up?
brother?
I'm
Man,
doing good. I've been changing diapers, and I went fishing Tuesday this past week. So like now I'm starting to remember the days that I'm going fishing now because I don't get to go all the time. I normally go in like every single day. So we have an 8-week-old little baby boy,
yeah.
and I've been taking care of him. But I'm excited. We're going to New York. Not New York. We're going to North Carolina tomorrow to the Chowan River.
Oh, wow.
So I'll be
Wow.
driving all day, but thank y'all for having me.
Yes,
Man,
sir. Yes,
DC,
sir.
I just gotta say, I mean, there is nothing like. I mean, you can put all the titles, all the championships, and everything, but when you have that baby, there's nothing like it.
No,
No.
So,
it's awesome.
yeah,
He's just now kind of starting to smile and just has a little personality, so it's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, we won't talk about Redcrest, but my first question about Redcrest though is, with you being a two-time champion, with winning in Eufaula and then winning this year in your backyard,
Hmm.
which one meant the most to you? I mean, because I know that first one always means a lot, but being able to come home and be able to win it in your backyard, man, which one? You were stoked either both ways, but I mean, but I didn't. I wanted to know which one meant the most to you.
Definitely Lake Lake because um, that was a lake that I had grown up fishing. I fished in a canoe there. I think I told that story later in the day. But I did. I literally launched the boat there. I launched a canoe there. It was a little red canoe. It's in my backyard. It's actually right over there. But that's a true story. I'd go down there and just paddle around. I had a little trolling motor with a little battery on there. I just troll around back there, and I mean, there's many times that I caught some out of that, and then I almost flipped out of it 1 or 2 times. But Lake for sure, because that place, I lived 15, 20 minutes from it my whole life. Eufaula, on the other hand, was kind of a surprise.
Right.
We were going to go to Palestine for that tournament. I went and pre-fished and did all that stuff, and and then that big ice storm came over.
Yeah.
So the ice storm came and it knocked it out, and we was like, all right. And then they told us 2 days before practice, or a day or two, yeah, that we're going to Eufaula, Alabama. I was like, all right. And then that tournament just happened, totally different than what I thought. But when it's your time, it's your time. And Lay Lake, for example, has kind of been my nemesis as a local lake. I think we all
Right.
kind of have those local
Oh
lakes.
yeah.
We all love like fishing a certain lake. Let's just say it's Gunnersville, Pickwick, Wheeler, you name it. There's one of them lakes that somebody don't like if they live up there.
All right.
Lay Lake was the one that I did not like, but I got revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still get a chance to spend time on Lay Lake? I mean, in current times with your schedule and all, or don't you
I
get?
haven't launched the boat there since I won.
So
How,
I
how,
may
that
just never
how,
launch it there again. That way, I got a winning record on that
yeah,
place.
you're
yeah,
right.
just go out on top. So what did you do that helped you achieve that goal to be able to win? I mean, because we had some pretty good weather coming in that changed. It wasn't. I mean, it was almost daily. That I mean, uh, what was it on Friday? Y'all launched. It was cloudy, but then there's a huge thunderstorm that came in,
Mm-hmm.
and so what was your thinking going through that you knew that all right, I have to do this, and then when this storm rolls in, what did you have to change, or were you able to keep to your game plan on what you were doing in the prior days?
No, that tournament was just full of changes, as all these Bass Pro Tour events are. We have 3 days of practice, and then the event, like a regular Bass Pro tournament, 3 days of practice. You have Group A, Group A, Group B, knockout round, championship round. Over the course of that week, the level of pressure that a lake gets, um, the conditions may change. I mean, we've seen that happen at Lake Eufaula the last tournament. The water came up
Right,
4 feet from the first day of practice, and the same thing happened on Lay Lake. So the first day of practice, when we get there, we had all this big rain a day or two prior. They had floodgates on. They had like 6 or 7 floodgates. There's current on the main river just ripping. The
yeah,
water was getting muddy in some areas, and I was just like, this practice is a complete waste of time. Because I knew what was happening. I knew that it
right,
was going to change. I knew the gates were going to cut off, and I had intentions of going up the river and catching them in some current and just in the river system up there because the fish get stacked up. Didn't happen the way you wanted it. And I had to just adjust. I mean, I'm telling you, I weighed fish with my official, and when I won Redcrest, from the first day of the tournament, I caught them all the way at the bottom dam, and I caught them all the way at the very top dam in the knockout round. So I had to just hodgepodge.
Yeah. Now that last day of the tournament, championship day, uh, you ran into a sweet spot on that last day, and I think you said on camera you fished that spot many times before, but you never ever caught them like that there before.
Yeah, that I love the springtime. Like I love right before they get on bed. I do because they're kind of predictable. And man, I had fished in that area a long. I've been fishing in that area for 15 years, and I've caught them on a jerk bait in that timber and stuff like that. But the fish were not staging in that timber. They had not made it to the timber yet,
Right.
so they were kind of in transition from the main lake, and then they stayed in those bays and they went to the timber. I've done tried all the timber places, all the little sneaky stumps and double stumps and all this, and they were not on any of that. Well, what happened is the bait moved in certain areas and it moved out depending on the weather. Well, it was a perfect day. It was cloudy, a little bit rainy. The bait had slid up shallower out of the river channel, and like all those big spots just moved in there. I did not intend on winning Redcrest in that area, but I dang sure wasn't about to leave it.
No, you don't.
Right.
You don't leave it because we've talked to other anglers and stuff that has had that's fished big tournaments and stuff, and they talk about when they have like a 3 day tournament or whatever that they'll try to leave some fish for the tournament, but then when it comes to that big championship time, that they're like, we're crushing everything that has. I mean, it's not guaranteed to be there tomorrow, so
Yep.
we're going to crush and get what we can get, and then we'll see what tomorrow holds when tomorrow comes.
I'll tell you this. I've been doing this for 8 years now. Okay. And, well, a lot of people don't really understand. Well, they don't really know the chaos that happens during these tournaments, before them, and then like let's say you make it to a championship day. For you to win that tournament, you can never plan it. There's never a plan.
Mm.
Like, you can have it in your mind, like, hey, I'm going to hit this, I'm going to hit that, I'm going to hit this, I'm going to hit that. 90%, I'm telling you, 100% of the tournaments that I've won. So I won Toledo Bend this year, first tournament of the year. I knew that I was going to take the lead early in that tournament because I had a really good starting spot. And then I said, I don't know where I'm going after that. I ain't got a clue. I do know what I have, and it has sizzled out. So if I run what I have, I'm inevitably not going to catch them. They're not there. I know they're not. The water had cleared up. They left. So I'm like, dang. But there's always that unknown. Like, I don't know what I'm going to run into. So I keep an open mind. But anyway, Toledo Bend, long story short, I didn't have a game plan for that one. I knew the first period, and then after that, you have to figure it out on the water. And I kept moving, 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 and I landed on a freaking mother load. And it was
Right.
kind of like Redcrest. So
So how, like when you're fishing and stuff like that, how fast do you make that decision? All right, Dustin, I got to make a move. I have to move right now, or do you like, all right, I'm going to give it another 5 casts, and if nothing happens, do you make that decision fairly quick, or is it something that I know you just talking to y'all guys that I mean it is pretty quick. It's quick to especially like weekend anglers. Y'all don't give it as much time as what some weekend anglers would do. But how fast is that decision for you to be able to say, all right, I can't, it's a waste of time for me to be here to even throw 5 more casts or whatever.
So, okay, for example, I was on Lake, and it was during the knockout round, and I was practicing. I'd already made the cut. So I ran into like a few, like 3 areas that I hadn't checked. And I went and ran some timber. Well, I rolled up on some timber. I didn't get a bite. Didn't get a bite. Wasn't seeing them on active target. Just wasn't getting a bite. After about 3 stops on some really good stuff, they're not in timber. The
Right,
tournament ain't gonna get one in timber, so I'm automatically eliminating that.
right,
Hey, and I just kind of use it as like a process elimination. Like, whenever I roll it, okay, we're going to the Chowan River.
right,
I'm gonna go kind of find me a watercolor that I like, and if I fish for an hour in that watercolor and I don't get a bite in this format that we fish, this fast-paced format, that is a losing deal.
yeah,
You will finish dead last if you don't weigh one in
yeah,
for a whole hour almost, in a really good fishery
right,
at a good time. So I'm dipping out. I'm leaving. If
yeah.
I don't get a bite doing something in an hour, I'm probably going to run 15 miles the other way. That's just how I fish. I don't know.
Right.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say with the live score tracker though, how much knowing what your competitors has, knowing how close they're getting to you if you are in the lead, or knowing what you need to have to kind of catch up to the leaders, how much does that play a part in your head?
That is one of the coolest things about what we do, with Major League Fishing. And I really wish, in my mind, that I wish every tournament angler out there could enjoy the convenience of having score tracker. because that gives me an edge. I can play score tracker. I know where I'm at. I know what I need. I know what time it is. I know I can run this far and get there, and I'll have 7 minutes left. And I know what's good and what ain't. So, like for example, at Mille Lacs, um, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I got a 7 pound lead. Well, it started getting really, really tight at the end, and I'm like, oh shit, I got to go catch one. So I went. I mean, I literally was like, oh crap, and I caught one last 2 pounder. Like
Yeah.
I was struggling to catch one, and I caught one last 2 pounder with like 4 or 5, like 6 minutes left. Well, I won that tournament by 4 ounces.
Yeah.
But I played score tracker and I'm listening the whole time. I'm like, oh, all right, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. So
Yeah.
it's a cool way to, it's a cool attribute to what happened.
Yeah, because if you didn't have that, you might have sat there and you might not have even moved to go get that 2 pounder. If you didn't know, you're thinking, I think I could be good. And so I really enjoy watching the score tracker, and I really like it, especially like when they got a camera boat, and then the marshal will say, "Well, so and so just scored," and whoever they got the going live on, you hear them like, "Oh crap!" And and 9 times out of 10, it's somebody that is from y'all's house that people are saying, "Oh crap, here they come." but but yeah, it's real enjoyable to watch, and I like the catch and release because you're not having to travel in the box. You don't have to worry about the fish being able to. Are they going to survive my trip back to the ramp and all that? And so I think that's one real.
My baby's over here going, meh, if you hear him in the background.
I can hear it's you're good, brother. But if is that do you enjoy doing like the catch, weigh, release, then like at bass where you bring in 5 fish and walk across the stage and hold them up? Do you enjoy that process a lot, uh, just as much? I mean, because the MLF, I mean, you really don't have the besides just having them walk on the stage and stuff like that, because everybody knows what the score tracking um, is. To me, that's one way where MLF is kind of is where it's not as viewer friendly as at the end of it, because people love seeing fish. And um, but do you enjoy not having to worry about the care of the fish, because as soon as you weigh them, y'all are throwing them right back in and getting right back at it?
So, all right. So I get that question a lot. I get the same similar question. Do I like catching five, or do I like Major League Fishing format?
Right.
And that's one of the deals with what we do. It is a change, and it's a very like right when we started Major League Fishing. I've always been a 5 fish limit guy, and dude, I enjoy watching 5 fish limits. I have not still to this day, and I hate to get a little controversial. I don't understand what the big hoopla and everybody's like, oh, it's such a big difference. We're bass fishing. It doesn't. I mean, no Major League Fishing has been won on peckerheads in like years. It seems like anybody who wins. I mean, if you go to Lake, I had 83 pounds. I weighed in a 21-pound bag of spotted bass. That is insane. Like, why can't we talk about that?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, you got Zach Burge. He won up there at Eufaula. I'm sure he had a 20-pound bag, 5 fish limit.
Yeah.
There's still people out there that are just asleep at the wheel. They're like, they catch peckerheads. And I'm like, how about no?
Well, the thing though is, what was it? Was it Edwin here a couple years ago where he pushed them up into the pocket, and it's like every cast for like 20 casts?
Yeah, that was 2019. That was the first Redcrest that we had, and that was on La Crosse, Wisconsin. That's when we had a 1 pound minimum.
Right.
And that was like, dang, and,
I
and,
mean, for
and
like 30 minutes, he was the only one that was on TV, on the live that they were showing, because it was literally every catch. And you can't tell me any fisherman out there would not love to have that day to where every cast for 30 minutes was. And he even got a penalty where the fish came off the hook and
Mhm.
he had to sit there for 2 minutes. And he's like, thank goodness, he said, because he was
I'm out
wore
of breath.
slap out. Yeah, he was wore
Yeah,
out.
that was a
So
cool deal to watch. But yeah,
so you can't tell me that, even, I mean, because we fish Chickamauga and Nickajack all the time, but you can't tell me that any fisherman can, if you say, hey, you're going to go out and catch 100 fish today, but the 100, you're all 100's going to be within a pound, 2 pounds. You're not going to tell me that you're going to go back home because you're only going to catch a pound, 2 pounds, but you're catching a
yeah,
100 of them.
that's
So
right.
fishing is fishing, and as long as you see that rod bending, I don't care what it is, it's still
Hmm.
exciting.
Yeah, going back to your other question, do I kind of miss being on stage and weighing fish? There is a side of me that I love putting them in a box. I love putting them in a bag. I mean, that
Yeah,
is just part of it. I do enjoy that, and I still do. We fish little Tuesday night tournaments. I fish a lot of local tournaments around the house. If they let me fish, I'll fish them.
right.
I like fishing. It don't matter if it's 200. I go. It don't matter to me. But you know, doing what we did with Major League Fishing, and I say this kind of lightly, but I see both sides. But what their whole premise of that product was is to come out with something a little bit against the grain and make it more entertaining. Because I'll say this as a five fish fan also, and y'all can't lie. Don't, dude, it's boring watching a five fish limit tournament after seeing what we do.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I mean, because
I
every fish
watch the
counts.
elite guys, and I'm nothing against the bass. I love bass. I love watching. I'm a fan of the sport. But dude, when they're at a sight fishing tournament, it's like a daggum snooze fest. I don't feel like watching. I watch for 5 minutes and I cut it off. And you're talking, you're looking at somebody who does it for a living.
Yeah.
Maybe I can learn something, but I'm not when I'm watching that.
No, and the thing, and you're exactly right, because I mean, this is the first year in no telling how many years that they did not start the first two or three tournaments down in Florida, to where that's what's going to happen,
Mhm.
and it was actually more entertaining this year watching, just for the fact, because you was not having some people just going around just sight fishing. I mean, you had a lot
Well,
of things play in effect this year.
what's funny is there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, and I don't even want to hardly touch this bucket, but the forward facing sonar side of things, people have no problem watching a man stand on his trolling motor to look at him all day just pitching this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if a man's sitting here pitching over here and catching an 8 pounder at Toledo Bend, this is terrible. I'm
Yeah.
like, come on now.
And all it is just where their eyes are focused on, and to
Oh,
me is, and again, we don't want to stay on, because I mean, we
oh,
have,
they beat that horse for months,
oh yeah,
years.
yeah, I mean, this
So
past off season for y'all and with the podcast, and we've had our other guests come on, and that was that was the big thing. Every time, every podcast, we have something
lot
about
lot
forward
of
facing
lot of
sonar, and I'm like,
lot of whining going on. They
yeah,
just whine about it. Oh
oh
boy, they
yeah,
whine.
we and so I tell people, I was like, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, but I was like, if you realize when the side scan came out, people were
Yeah.
griping and complaining just like they are about the forward facing sonar. I said, now side scan comes regular on every unit that's out there. You cannot get a
Mhm.
unit without it. So what's the difference? I mean, you can still see fish out there. You can
You
still,
know,
and
it's to kind of sum up what you're saying. I hate to even talk about it. I don't even like
yeah,
talking about it, but um, our sport is forever changing. Every sport is forever changing in my
Yeah.
mind, but our sport is very particular. We are fishing for something that moves around. Okay,
Yeah.
a curveball moves around to a certain extent, but it don't move 7 miles. See what
Right.
I'm saying? Um, we don't fly airplanes with compasses no more. We don't get out on the ocean with it looking trying to triangulate stars.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I don't know. I could go for days about it, but I have benefited from four phase sonar. The biggest issue with that is the premise of nomadic fish. That is
Yeah.
what everybody's mad about. They're mad about the pelagic fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're mad about that. That's what they're mad. But I don't know. I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
catching them on it.
Hey, that you just keep doing your thing, I mean,
There you
because
go.
you 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 guys are most enjoyable to watch for me, just because it's like what you're saying, like every fish counts. I mean, because you could go out there and you could get on a pack of them, or a school of them, and just you can make so much ground in just a short period of time,
I
and
love that. I
and
love
so
being able to come back and have a
yeah,
chance.
so
When I was fishing with bass, real quick, but like I remember there were certain times where you would lose a 4 pounder and the weights were really tight and your tournament's over.
over, yeah,
And that's kind of a factor that you cannot control with Major League Fishing. If you lose a 4 pounder, you can control the factors. You can
right,
potentially come back after that.
right. So we do have Alton has just now joined us, but I do have a quick question. We actually got a couple more questions for you, Dustin. But I don't know if you know, but Jacob and his wife just fished a Friday nighter, and they ended up winning with her catching her PB. And so my question for you would be, if Jacob and his wife and you and your wife was to face off, who's going to take it home?
I'm probably gonna say Jacob and his wife. I'm not even gonna shoot the bull with y'all on that one. My wife, she's not that big of a fisher woman, I guess you would say. She
Right,
she kind of likes the sunset, reading a book on the boat kind of deal. She don't fish that much. Now she's reeled some in with me.
right.
But I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't seen Alicia's skills. Apparently she can catch a few, but she
Yeah.
is in the boat with a dang good guide.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yeah. There you
So,
go.
but while I'm going to get Alton on, and then we'll kind of have y'all kind of chit chatting for a second together, if that's fine with y'all. So, hey, Norman, if you want to ask DC uh,
The last question.
what our last question would be.
Yeah, man. Hey, Dustin, this is a question we ask all of everybody that comes on the podcast or we interview. But if you were to have if you were able to fish with one person for the day, Dustin, and this person could be passed away or still with us, who would that person be that you would want to fish with for the day, and why would you want to fish with her?
um, I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, I would say I don't really know that one. I mean, I would have to go with A Mark for sure. I have actually been in the boat with Aaron Martins. I've fished with Aaron Martins, and that was on Logan Martin before. But just knowing all of his little tinkering trips with tips with
Yeah,
finesse fishing, that would be cool to kind of get inside the mind of him and say, hey, why do you do this? What do you do that about? Because our sport is getting more and more finesse style.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure out there. So you bring some old school A Mark tricks back, it'd be cool.
man, and that would be. I mean, he was way. I mean, in front of that whole class on the finessing
Quick
and stuff, and I
fun
mean,
fact about Aaron. When I was in the boat with him, he's sponsored by Gamakatsu, right?
mm,
Well, he had a file, and he files every hook straight out of the pack. And I'm
man,
like, What? That's
Yeah.
that's super sharp. So I do the little fingernail little thing. I'm like, that thing's sharp. He's like, nah, that one right there ain't right yet. I'm like, all right then.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, Alton, brother, thank you for coming on. And we a couple questions while we got both of y'all on here. What what do you think for both of y'all would be y'all's favorite lake that MLF has gone to that y'all have fished? It doesn't have to be the Redcrest or anything like that. It could just be the heavy hitters or whatever y'all do with the MLF. What would be considered like y'all's favorite lake that y'all have gone to?
Man, I don't
Lake
know.
Eufaula, Oklahoma.
If not Eufaula, Oklahoma.
I couldn't stand that place, boy.
That was more like deer hunting than bass fishing. You're just sitting in a tree stand hoping one swims by your worm.
Yeah, I would say for me, I mean, I gotta just keep it 100. St. Lawrence River for me until the end of time. Like
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
just I like current. I love catching smallmouth, and I mean that ain't no like sneaky place. That's I think that's everybody's favorite place in fishing. So
right,
that's
Yeah.
mine forever.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So do y'all like the TVAs, which I know DC you're right there with it, and so um, so do y'all care? Do y'all like fishing the TVA lakes and
Hey,
I
AJ.
I love fishing the TVA lakes. However, I'd say it's probably like my biggest weakness. Like when you come to the whole like you think of Gunnersville, Wheeler, Pickwick, Kentucky Lake, like that whole offshore, especially when you get into summertime. It's not something we have a lot of in the state of Texas. A
right?
lot of times when we're talking offshore, they're small schools. A lot of times they're fishing brush or real small structure. They're not current oriented fish, which a lot of around where Dustin lives, whether it's the Coosa or the Tennessee, current makes the world go round. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
super fun because they're phenomenal fisheries and they all have their little nuances.
Yeah.
yeah,
I will say this: I love fishing Gunnersville, Pickwick. I'm kind of more of a fan of Pickwick more than Gunnersville. Pickwick to me is a little more diverse. You can catch smallmouth as well. And then if you wanted to lock up, if you had the opportunity, you could go up there and fish current. But I hate going this time of year. I love fishing deep. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. But them ledges are lined up like a Taylor Swift concert. It is
oh,
unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
and
You literally look out through there. It looks like you're at an oil rig out in the ocean. It's boats scattered everywhere. I'm like, I can't do this.
yeah, yeah. I
Hey, it
mean,
can't be any worse than Cypress Lake last week on on Saturday.
Oh my gosh, that was terrible. And then nobody was even catching anything. There was one boat that caught 33 pounds, and everybody else was over there just.
casting away. Yeah, I mean, we are here on we live on Chickamauga, Alton, and so I mean, as soon as the spawn's over and that post spawn started, I mean, it goes from everybody going up shallow to everybody's out back. I mean, or out on them ledges, and it's like that until fall time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like you just pick a number and you just wait in line to be able to get onto the honey holes and
Yeah.
I'm like, just give me a Texas rig or something like that, and I can go beat the banks. And if I can get on some good ones, I'm gonna I'm gonna give you a run for the money.
There you go.
Honestly,
So
this time we're kind of ending that period now, but this time of year is some of my favorite because I feel like us as anglers, we try to get ahead of the fish. When they're coming to spawn, we want them to be there, so we force it.
right,
Same thing with the ledges, and a lot of times, like I used to love early spawn, but now everybody's on that game. But I love this time of year. Like I said, we're ending it, but everybody
right,
goes to the ledges. They think shad spawn, they go offshore, they fish brush, and there's still some of those late spawners, late fry garters, and there's still some really big fish to get caught shallow. So it's like finally the time when I get to fish my strength and kind of get to fish free, where I have it all to myself. There's not as
right,
many fish, but you get to really kind of just have it to yourself.
right. So DC, we've had you on here for your 30 minutes that we told you that we was going to have you, but I do have another question, and then after for both of y'all. But then after you get done, we'll get you off of here, brother, and get to that
Okay.
baby. Um, next year's Redcrest. Are you stoked about it being on Gunnersville and still being in your home state?
I was just about to say that. So we had Eufaula and we had Lay Lake. I don't know why they like going to Redcrest in Alabama. They don't hardly ever even have a tournament here unless it's on Smith Lake. So they're going back to Alabama for Redcrest. I like my odds. I don't know why. I get lucky in Alabama. Smith Lake. I don't know what it is. I don't even really like Gunnersville that much in April.
Right.
Um, but I don't know. Maybe we could make it work somehow. I am excited about it, and
Yeah.
the best part is I'm already qualified. So if I bomb the next 3 tournaments, we're still going to be in it.
I think points wise, you're about safe anyway.
I hope so. Speaking of points, the next 3 tournaments are very important.
Very,
yes.
Very for all of us.
Yeah.
So, but Dustin, man, we thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope to see you here soon, and if, maybe we'll run into you out on Chickamauga or Nickajack or something like that here sometime soon, brother. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Norman. Thank you,
appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
See
you in a couple days.
All right. Well, while Colin's resizing Alton Jones there, we might as well give him a proper intro, being that we didn't get the intro in yet. But anyway, Alton, here we go, man. He has 28 top 20s, 18 top 10s, 3 career wins, and has 4 Redcrest appearances with back-to-back second-place Redcrest finishes in 2023 and 2024. He is the number 2 ranked angler in the world, the one, the only AJJ, Alton Jones Jr. There we go.
There we go.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. That's good. That's a great introduction. It was better than I deserve.
Oh, man. We appreciate you coming on with us and taking a few minutes out of your off time, man, to chat fishing a little bit and talk about last year's Redcrest.
Sure.
Not last year's, but this past Redcrest anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you cannot be, you really can't be disappointed, Alton, in your performances the past 2 years. Because you have really, you put yourself up there. You were in contentions to be able to hold that trophy. But how much does it drive you for next year to be like, I've got to hold that trophy here?
Yeah, man. It definitely pushes you coming close, like tripping on that top step. But it does soften the blow. When you lose to Thrift in 2023 and then Dustin in 2024, they kind of put the beat down on the whole field. So it makes it an easier pill to swallow. Had I finished second to Dustin by 1 scorable, I probably wouldn't be able to smile as easily about it. But he drummed us pretty good. I don't know if I would say it makes me hungrier because I really want that trophy to begin with, but it definitely builds confidence.
Right.
And in this sport, confidence and trust in your intuition and gut is a huge thing. And coming that close twice, just reinforces my confidence in my fishing ability and tells me that it's possible, right? And so you always want to go out on the water thinking you got a shot to win, and I think the closer you get to that goal of holding that world championship trophy, just allows you to go out on the water every day and know you have what it takes in a sense.
Yeah, and because Norman and I, we fish tournaments. We don't fish them as much as we used to and stuff, but that has to be a pretty good feeling. Like every time you put that boat in that water, that that I have a chance. There's a chance that that I could take this home, and it doesn't have to be Redcrest. It could be any of the tournaments. So that has to be pretty confident wise to know that I can do this. And how have you been able to build that confidence? Because you come by a family that is fishermen, and is that something that you just kind of grew up with having your dad and stuff, that he's like, we're going, this is how you do it, this is work ethic of how you're supposed to do it? And is that how your confidence, because Norman and I, we've talked and we can see that confidence on the camera, especially when when they have it on you, and we can see that confidence that you have, just shines right through. Like you have just like, this is another day, pretty much.
Mhm. And I did. I had a great teacher. I was homeschooled, traveled the country with my dad as he fished the FLW and the Bassmaster Elites. And so I spent 6 months on the road. So I had a very different upbringing. A lot of people have their home lakes, that they're just absolutely studs on. And that was something I never had. Like I
Right.
never fished the same lake more than 2 or 3 days, 4 days a year. Even the lakes where I live there in Waco. I'd go there today and I would get thumped by the locals. However, I got to see a ton of different bodies of water all across the country at a young age. And the way I fished, it was practice,
Right.
and practice is more important than the tournament. When I'm fishing with my dad, he's fishing these lakes blind just as I do now, and that's just kind of how I learned to bass fish.
Right.
It's not going to fish a spot we fished growing up or anything like that. It was the process of breaking down a fishery. And that's just kind of my background and upbringing. He was an amazing teacher. He did keep it fun for me, but as practice is the hardest thing because those are the longest days. Um, they're tough conditions. You're out there, rain, sun, or shine. It's not fair weather fishing, and if you can, it's one thing to fall in love with fishing. It's another thing to fall in love with that side of fishing. And he taught me how to do it well, taught me how to do it right, and then coming into the confidence side of it now, I don't really feel anything different than what I felt when I was 22 years old fishing the Bassmaster Opens and getting my teeth
Right.
kicked in. It just kind of begins to click. That's really all I can say to it. I kind of had to, I look at fishing the Opens. I had to learn what it takes kind of from myself, from a work ethic standpoint. Whether that was pre-practicing, putting out your own brush, just spending long days on the hour, how to break down a body of water by myself. And then when I learned that, I, had success. I qualified for the elite, and I get my teeth kicked in, right? And I had to find that next gear.
Right.
And I think we're all constantly doing that. And you got guys like you fast forward to the BPT, kind of the same thing. It's shortened. I go down to 2 days of practice now, where every fish counts, and managing fish becomes much more difficult. Kind of had to learn that next gear and how to prepare differently. And kind of once you get in that groove, you get comfortable, and then you begin to really blossom as an angler.
Right.
But even where we're at now, I look at Dustin and Jordan Lee and Jacob Wheeler, and we're all pushing each other to find that next gear. Just when I think, man, I worked harder this week than I've ever worked before, I look at somebody, either one of those names I just listed, just worked harder than me.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. It may be the extra 15 minutes he spent on the water. It may have been the pre-practice he did 2 months before, or something like that. But there's always, if you're hungry enough for it, you talked about being hungry for that trophy, you'll make the effort to find that
Yeah.
next year.
That's it. Now, I want to talk also, we want to kind of stay on the topic of the Redcrest and stuff. One, you had went to a place a couple days in a row for Redcrest, and it was like a little, like a dam, like little area that had current that was coming by.
Yeah.
What was that? Your mindset when you're coming down the river and you see that? What was so eye catching to you that made you say, "All right, I want to throw"? I mean, because you was talking about it during when they had you on live when you was caught and you, I mean, because you was talking about how you wanted that bait to come around that wall and stuff like that. So what was so eye catching to you on that to make you want to stop?
Yeah.
If you remember where I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's the steam plant there on Lay Lake. It's a very famous. I mean, if you watch any of the old classic shows, almost somebody is top tenning a tournament off of that every time you see a show from there.
Right.
So it's a place with a lot of history. Everybody knows about it. It is the biggest community hall in that whole lake. However, current fishing, not my biggest strength, but it simplifies it, right? You've got super hard current, you've got a super clear eddy, and you've got 2 or 3 different places where the current flows out. Actually, Jesse Wiggins finished in the top 5 in that event off of the next current down from where I was starting. And so, knowing the history of that place and its potential for holding a lot of bass, right? So I fished through it in practice, had 2 or 3 bites off of each current, and I just knew it had potential, right? I didn't
Right.
know if there was 5 fish there or 50 fish there, and if it's the kind of place where there's 50 fish, it's one of those places. If you don't start on it, you're not going to get on it. And with my AOY standings, I had a good boat number, and it was just kind of a no-brainer because it's a place that even on a bad day, you're going to pull up and you're going to get a bite or two, and it just
Right.
kind of gets the ball rolling, right? The first fish is always the hardest one to catch, and so it's a good way to start off on a good note.
Yeah. And how important, and I remember you talking about this, because you kept on adjusting your boat to be able to get a different boat positioning to be able to make a cast that you was wanting to make. So how
Mm-hmm.
important
Yeah.
is to have that boat positioning to for you to be able to make a correct cast to
Mm-hmm.
where you're making that bait go where you want it to go and do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so what was cool is that every day those fish were positioned differently. There was one main eddy out of right there on the hardest inside of the current, but the water was actually because we were under flooding conditions on the lake itself, so the water was actually going up and down, changing those current seams. And so every day I'd have to make 3, 4, 5 casts at different angles, and
Right.
I was throwing a half-ounce spinnerbait, not nothing crazy rocket science, but every angle is going to give that bait a different drift and a different presentation, whether it's the place I cast it or the direction the bait's coming at. And so once you find those sweet spots, those fish are there for a reason. And, you could sit there and make that same cast over and over again and kind of get a little school fired up, get a flurry going, catch 3 or 4 fish real quick.
Right. We actually have Jerry Brousseau that is, he says, questions. He said, what's your favorite bait to throw, favorite body of water, and your biggest bass?
So I'll answer those in reverse. My biggest bass is 11 pounds, 1 ounce. Caught it on Sugar Lake in Mexico. I was like 15 years old. Still hadn't come close to touching that. I've caught a lot of 10-pounders, but never another 11. My favorite body of water, man, it's not to beat a dead horse, but Dustin talked about the St. Lawrence River. We're all down here starting to get summertime. When we go up there, we're escaping the heat. It's everything looks like it's out of a Nat Geo magazine. It's crystal clear water, big smallmouth. If you want to go shallow, big largemouth. And the fish up there we love to fish because we love to catch, and the fish up there, they bite. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. Not very often you get to fish that shallow and power techniques in 20-foot visibility water. It's incredibly unique. The weather's great, and it's hard to beat. And then favorite bait to throw, I'm going to throw a shameless plug out there. Last year at Bussy Break, I won on a bellow shad. The heavy hitters the year before at heavy hitters when the bellow shad was still a prototype. I caught $50,000 and $100,000 bass on it off a bed. It's just a bait that it's been really beneficial to my career from G-Crack, and I'd be crazy not to say that thing right there.
Right. Now, kind of going off of that question, is there a lake that has your number?
In the past, the Tennessee River kind of has had my number. I've gotten some checks there, and when I say gotten some checks, if they pay 50 places, I was getting that 48th place check. Last year I circled Gunnersville in June as a don't mess this up tournament,
Right.
survive it. And we ended up finishing like 11th place. That was like I won a tournament last year, but I look at my whole season and that is the biggest victory morally
Right.
for me. Just like, again, building confidence, catching them on a 10XD and a flutter spoon and a hair jig. Just getting comfortable with those types of techniques and figuring out timing and current and generation, when to fish what spots. And so, the whole Tennessee River system as a whole has kind of had my number.
Yeah. Well, we've asked that question to quite a few of our guests, and it kind of surprises me, but not really. But we've had Mike Iaconelli on, and oh shoot, who I can't. We had a couple other people, but when we've asked that question, Alton, they said the state of Florida is what is what has their number.
Yeah.
Anything that has to do with if it has Florida at the back end of it, they said it has their number. So
Yeah, Florida's one of those that you look at different places like Santee Cooper or Florida. They're just places that can jump up and bite you. They're really inconsistent. It can be very hard to generate bites, and Florida's definitely one of those places. And if I want to add in another just thing that's had my numbers, tidal fisheries in the past, and we've got one, kind of two of them coming up in our next two events. So they're going to be really important events in our whole season. With Angler of the Year race, you've got me and Dustin and Jacob and a few others up there that those are ones that just they could anybody could bomb. You get your timing off one day and it can throw your whole season for a loop. So, but that excites me. If these were going to be forward facing sonar events, I've got an 11-point deficit to Jacob right now. 11 points to Jacob Wheeler in a forward facing sonar derby is a lot, but in a tidal derby, not quite so much.
Yeah. So, because y'all are going to North Carolina next, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're headed to the Chewan River, which I assumed was going to be tidal, but everybody on my YouTube has been like, "It's not tidal. It's not tidal. It's just some big sound there off of the ocean." But I guess we're far enough away where there is no tide, from what I understand.
Right. So is that something that you think you're gonna be able to fish your strengths on then with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This next event, looking at it, looking at the weights, it's got a lot of big fish. I think you're going to have some guys, if you want a forward-facing sonar, fish offshore, fish brush. Now, I haven't pre-practiced it, but I would assume there's going to be some of that to do. However, there's tons of shallow visual cover. I think you're going to see, everybody loved heavy hitters last week, watching guys catch them on a frog and flipping mats and winding a chatterbait. I expect power fishing, frogging, buzzbait, spinnerbait, just kind of it'll be a continuation of old school techniques. There's always forward-facing sonar is always going to play at some capacity. I'm definitely going to keep one eye on that screen, whether I'm shallow or deep. But I think people are really going to like what they see this next week.
Yeah. So how, with you talking, we don't want to talk too terribly much about it because we've got 1,600 people watching this live. So,
okay.
And if we get onto forward-facing sonar, it's already talking forward-facing sonar. So, we're talking. Can you hear me? Can you hear us?
I got you now. My AirPods. Somebody
called my phone and it disconnected my AirPods. So I missed that
whole it's probably DC just playing jokes.
Probably.
So, what to me, like with the forward-facing sonar, that y'all have really shown here the past year and a half is how shallow y'all can go and still use that forward-facing sonar and be effective with it. Mm-hmm. That has been phenomenal. And I mean, because I've got it on my boat, I definitely don't have the hours that y'all have on it. But just my thinking on it is how shallow is shallow that y'all feel comfortable enough to take that and to be effective.
It's kind of made me mad actually to see how shallow I can fish with it, because I've had this stuff on my boat for years, and I'm just now, I used to think 5 foot was shallow, and it's really not. In the world of perspective mode, we've got special mounts on our boats from Fish Obsessed, not a sponsor, just good people make a thick mount, and I can put that perspective to 0 degree, and I mean I can see easily in 2 feet for sure, maybe even a foot.
Wow.
Now I'm not looking, I'm not in forward mode. I'm in perspective, so I'm
Right,
not
right.
seeing my bait. I'm not seeing things like that. But just getting a lay of the land, seeing fish on beds. I mean, it's just blown me away. The capabilities of this stuff, and it frustrates me because I'm sitting here learning this on YouTube like everybody else when I want to be a pioneer of this stuff.
Right.
Right. Um, you, both you and your father, have a heavy hitters championship. Uh, what is it like? What is it like at the Thanksgiving dinner table with you and your dad, both competing at the highest level together? And what is it like being able to actually be on tour with your dad? Because there's not a lot of I don't know if there's ever been in the past. I'm sure there has back sometime, but you
Yeah.
don't see a lot where you actually get a son or daughter, for that matter, being able to compete against their father at the highest level like you and Alton Senior is able to do.
Yeah, man, it's been really cool. We definitely cheer for each other. Got two chances to win. I mean, when I'm sitting there, I'm asking score tracker updates for myself, and if we're competing on the same day, I'm constantly asking what's Dad got, and I'm either saying, "Come on, step it up," or I'm like, "Whoa, chill out a little
Slow it
bit. You're
down.
embarrassing me." Yeah. So, but there's actually there's quite a few. Well, it there's been a bit of a lull between the father son thing, but Chad and Denny Brower did compete on the elites at the same time. Dion and Guido did it. I think for a short time, Scott and Roland overlapped.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But now you've got Marshall and Marty Robinson.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
Cal Lane. Now they're not fishing the same tour yet. It's only a matter of time though.
yeah.
Cal and Chris Lane. You've got Laker Howell and Randy Howell. So it's cool to see. There's always been a little bit of a disconnect, I think, between sons and fathers, whether it's whatever it is, following in footsteps. But it's really cool to kind of see a full generation of people like me,
Yeah.
pursuing this dream and passion and having success at it.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird to kind of see to where both of them have kind of collided together to where they have and talking to other people that um, like I enjoy baseball, and I've talked to people that where they've been able the father and the son's been able to play baseball or golf, like pro golf, and they said that's the most enjoyable time, especially for the father to be able to see their son rise up to the occasions
Yeah.
and stuff. And so, but yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine. I know if it was my dad that I was fishing against, um, all he would tell me is to throw a purple Texas purple curly tail with a Texas rig. That's all he'd say. He wouldn't give me any other advice. It's got to be
Yeah.
purple.
Yeah, we are super competitive though. I don't want to understate that. We
Yeah.
like to jab at each other, and we want both to have success. But when it comes down to it, he wouldn't admit this, but he wants to step on my throat if he could. It's the competitive drive in him.
Right. Especially if the camera's rolling, he won't say
When you
it.
guys are
Right.
when you
In
guys
the
are
most loving way a father could, though.
Right.
when you guys are on the road, do you guys room together or do you not do that?
We do. We room together at most places where it's possible. We get an Airbnb, and as long as he's still traveling and doing it, that's something we'll do. And we don't really get to fish together that much anymore, which stinks. But one thing I'm really excited about is we've got the team series coming up, and now instead of three, it's two people in the same boat, and I picked him as my teammate. So not only are we going to get to fish together, but it'll be the first tournament we fished together since I was probably 16 years old.
Oh man,
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's going to be
Cool.
a sight right there, and then definitely a memory for both of y'all.
Yeah.
And so,
You'll see if we might get to fighting and arguing on the front deck, but you never know.
make sure
over the trolling motor.
Yeah, just make sure the camera's rolling when somebody goes in the water.
Right.
So this year, y'all are making that St. Lawrence River? Y'all are fishing up there this year,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, it's our final event.
So because being from Tennessee, I grew up in Middle Tennessee. I live in Chattanooga, or both of us live in Chattanooga now. We fish Chickamauga, Nickajack, and Gunnersville, and but I tell you, to be honest with you, some clear water, especially clear deep water, is something that it that is any lake that's clear. We're talking about has our lakes that have our number. If it just says clear deep water, it has my number. So how do you make that adjustments to be able to fish that clear water? Because I know there you can fish deep, you can fish shallow. Um, so how do you make that adjustments? Is it something that you're going to want to fish shallow structure, or are you wanting to stay deep or something?
There typically we're going to be there in August. Deep tends to be dominant. The closer you go to the lake, the colder the water will get. So fish will tend to live a little bit shallower. Um, but deep dominates. You're going to be using side scan, trying to find boulders and rocks to break the heavy current. I mean, we're talking heavy current.
Yeah.
But the good thing about fishing up there is, like I said earlier, they bite, and you have to get around them.
Right.
But when you get around them, you know it. So you can kind of bebop around and get on a pattern fairly quickly if you just try a lot of different things, whether it's shallow, deep.
Right.
But it's when they do show themselves when you fish by them.
Right. Now, I mean, because that's one thing I've never fished up north. I've always wanted to, just to be able to see something that you can see 40, 50 feet deep, and you're looking, and it looks like a rock down there, and then you finally see that rock move, and you're like, I just, to be able to hold one of them footballs would be something else. So
And they are built different up there. They're
they
built
are
different.
for sure. But I do want to say this though, Alton, is I would like to see you catch that 11-2 again, and I mean, because that jumps the score tracker up pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the next two on the schedule being summertime, I know the James River, the Chickahominy especially, has some double-digit bass. I don't know if we're going to be. I would love to break it. It would guarantee us a shot in heavy hitters next year.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard a lot of really good things about where we're about to go at the Chawan. I'll get butchered for how I pronounce it, but yeah, I mean, I would love nothing more. The schedule
Yeah.
doesn't really set up for it, but man, I would love nothing more for that. It doesn't matter if I'm in a tournament or not, man. I love bass fishing, and I think we all remember our all of our PBs, whether it was the first 5 pounder or first 10 pounder or
Yeah.
whatever, and they're just, dude, they got you on cloud nine.
Now,
Oh yeah.
what is your biggest bass you caught in competition?
So at Lake Falcon, I caught a 10-1 in a Bass Champs trail. Um, and professional level, 8-15 at Lake Fork is my biggest. I don't think I've ever put a 9 in the boat. I caught a handful of 8s, never put a 9 in the boat in a pro derby.
Yeah. So my dad actually says, Alton, hold on, let's see. Alton, it is great watching you in the derbies. The joy you show while you're on the water is a big part of that. Thanks, and keep it up.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
so we don't want to hold you. We've had you about 30 minutes, so we don't want to hold you too much longer. So Norman, do you want to go and ask our final question to him, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, Alton, if you were to have one person on your boat and this person could be passed away or still with us, who would that person be and why would you want to fish with that person for the day?
You know, Dustin had a really great answer. That definitely but there's quite a few of them I would love to fish with. Probably the person for some sentimental value. My dad's grandpa, who I never met, got him into bass fishing at a small little hunting and fishing club called West Lakes near Tyler, Mineola, Texas area. It's where my dad caught his first bass with his grandpa, and
Right.
it's where I ended up actually catching my first bass as a child. But just kind of to just get to meet the person that started it all, right? So if he
Right.
wasn't there to
Awesome.
teach my dad to love bass fishing in the outdoors, I probably never would have had that opportunity. And so just to kind of see how he did it back in the early 1900s. What kind of meal colored worm was he throwing? But just get to spend a day in the boat with him would have been a lot of fun.
That's
Yeah.
sweet.
And just to see, like, my dad and I were talking about it. We were on Chick here yesterday, and we were talking about, because my mom's dad and my dad and I, we used to fish all the time. We lived on Old Hickory Lake, and he brought up, what would you think your granddaddy would think with just seeing the forward facing sonar and the baits and stuff that we are using to catch these bass? And I was like, it would blow his mind.
He'd probably think I was crazy. He'd still be throwing some type of Mepps inline spinner and a ribbon tail worm. But back then I don't think the fish were quite as educated or as pressured as they are today. So I think after about a day of struggling,
Yeah.
he'd be wanting to stock a motto shad and live scope.
So, but Alton, brother, man, we cannot thank you enough for coming on, and we're going to try to catch up with y'all again, because we've been doing media and stuff with MLF and Bass, so we're going to try to be able to catch up with y'all again this year. But if not, if we do not talk to you or see you here this year, we will definitely see you on Gunnersville, and we'll make sure that we're there at the ramp and do some interviews with you and stuff. We deeply enjoyed this.
Well, I look forward to it, guys, and thank you guys so much for having me on, and hope to see y'all soon on the water.
Yes,
Sounds good, brother.
Be good.
So, see you guys.